Jenny-Jaymes and our sidekick Christian Cano, partner in crime, is coming up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen's sidekick. Welcome to Two Queers In A Truckk. Hi y'all.
See you. Good morning, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. This is the Valentine's edition of Two Queers In A Truckk, and we'll be sharing the love. Or as they say, there's a fine line between love and hate. This is Jenny and Christian, and we're all on the queer bandwagon this morning. Yeah, what's happened since the last show? Gosh,
I know.
Interesting thing. We'll get right into it. But Toby Keith, longtime country and western star, passed away yesterday or this week. And if you're seeing this for the first time, a week ago, and a lot of people were mourning him, but honestly, he was a terrible human being. And I still remember what he did to the Dixie Chicks, and specifically Natalie Maines, right after 9/11. And he photoshopped a picture of her hugging Saddam Hussein and targeted the Dixie Chicks for so much hate pushback because they were against the invasion of Iraq and the 9/11 wars. And they were, and incidentally, they were right. It was the atrocities that we committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the fact that we killed over 1 million people for absolutely no reason, is something, to me, it was the precursor to what we're seeing with MAGA.
Yeah.
As we saw this, come hell or high water, we want to go kill people. And this bloodthirst, this hatred, and it was cheerleaded by guys like Toby Keith that used it to boost their career, to boost record sales. Came out with songs that were obviously ramping people up, and that are just anthems for violence and cruelty, that you see very much abundant in the mouth-bringing, inbred MAGAs today, that I think really started with the 9/11 paranoia. I had so many friends of color, especially men that wore beards, that had a tough time on airplanes. They got harassed by TSA, got harassed by people that looked Middle Eastern and weren't. I got a friend that's Brazilian that he liked growing his beard out a certain way. The problem was, in 2003 and 2004 and 2005, it made him look like he was from like Saudi Arabia or something like that. And people were just so racist and so xenophobic. And yeah, 9/11 was terrible. I'm not going to debate, murdering civilians of any kind, including Americans. All the first responders that died was terrible. But what we did in response, and what we did to our own people, what we continue to do to our own people, because the consequences of 9/11 and the laws we passed is way worse than what bin Laden did on 9/11. And, we've had almost 38,000 veterans from those wars take their own life. That's more than was killed in action and killed in 9/11 and the people that had medical issues from the Twin Towers crashing combined. Like, it's like 4 times as much. And just the general hateful attitude. And we saw the Dixie Chicks literally wiped out of the music industry for like 20 years. They've come back and rebranded as the Chicks. And now they're middle aged. They lost almost 20 years of income. They were drummed out of a business, probably because of misogyny. They were cute young women that were just starting life, that were in their early 20s, and you got a verbal beat down from these so-called patriotic men. For what? For protesting the deal, wearing a t-shirt that says "fuck Toby Keith." That was their crime. We've seen way worse on Alex Jones' show or Charlie Kirk or anything on Fox News. It's been way worse than anything Dixie Chicks ever done. And or even look at MTG showing nudes of President Biden's son in Congress. How is she not in jail for that? But it seems like if conservatives do really awful things, they never get held accountable for it. And Toby Keith, may he rest in piss on what he did to people. And I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. C'est la vie. When you're a shitbag in this life, don't expect me to celebrate you. Don't expect me to be a big hunk of misogynistic chicken shit, and then go, oh, I'm sad he died. No, not really. I mean, I liked a few of his songs, but honestly, what he did as a human being outweighs whatever artistry he may or may not have had to take advantage and browbeat and verbally bully to the point where they were getting death threats. And rednecks were targeting them for all kinds of stuff. And they literally had to end their careers or pause their careers for over a decade because of morons like Toby Keith. And drop some dirt on him. Let's move on. Moscow Mike is in the news, and I'm talking about Mike Johnson, the gay, not gay Speaker of the House, that is they've been bitching about the border security for 3 years. So the Senate over the weekend passes a comprehensive border bill with asylum rules, funding, whole 9 yards to stop this invasion. This invasion's been going on for hundreds of years. The white people started, by the way. White people were the first invaders. There was people and nations here before we were. Little pesky fact. And white people came here and said, we want your land. We want your resources. I think we'll enslave or kill you. But I think it's ironic that they call immigrants invaders. And the House is, the moment it was passed the Senate and got sent over to the House, this 370-page bill, they were saying it's dead on arrival. They explain that to me. Explain what's the point of crying about something and then not doing something about it when the solution's in your hand. That's it. There's no, they can try to say, well, Trump doesn't want to do it. Trump's not president. And Trump's not the Speaker of the House. You are. And you need to act like it. And if this is really that scary, pass the bill. They should have flew through. They should have been, everybody in the House should have voted for it. If it's really that scary, if they really prove their case that we're being invaded daily by thousands of poor people looking for jobs and asylum, then this should have just whizzed right through, because the funding for 9/11 wars and appropriating trillions of dollars in an unlimited checkbook for Cheney and Bush. And the fact that he said we're going to fight for over 10 years. This is going to take forever. We're going to invade as many countries as it takes. And they still passed it. Only one person conscientiously objected and voted no. Out of everybody in the House and the Senate, Democrats, Republicans alike, one woman stood up against that horde. Just like Natalie Maines. And yet, the numbers of people that they say are coming across the border every day, especially into Texas, for some reason, they're picking Texas to cross that, even though there's 3 other states to cross on the southern border. It seems to be overwhelming Texas, and their princess of the governor that's just so highly offended that brown people come to their state, not realizing that probably the majority of the people that live in his state are black and brown people. It seems to be lost on him. He doesn't even know what his own population looks like. Have you been to San Antonio? Have you been to South Texas? Have you been to the Valley? Have you been to Houston? What, lately? Or in the last, I don't know, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades, maybe? Maybe you should take a visit of your own state. Maybe you should leave your Austin bubble and wherever you came from and roll on over to the other parts of your state, pun intended. But Willie Nelson, aka Governor Abbott, needs to quit lying about the border deal and admit that it's not a crisis. That literally all the stuff is just photo ops to scare the shit out of people. In fact, some of the people from the trucker convoyers kind of scratch their head going, we came down here for all this, and all we're seeing is people selling trinkets and t-shirts. Because they focused on one park in Del Rio when there's thousands of miles of border. You can go 2 miles down the road and the gates are open. Nobody guarding them. Because they're accessing private land. Back and forth, there's people that own land on both sides of the border. Ranchers and shit. Funny how that works. There's tons of Mexican nationals that do business in Texas and drive the Texas economy. And there's tons of Texans that do business every day in Mexico. We have an open border because we do almost $1 trillion a year with Mexico. They are our top 3 trading partner in the world. We do as much business with them as we do with China. And China's got the biggest population in the world. We've got the most factories in the world. We do more business with Mexico than we do with the UK. I don't think people fathom how much business, like, you can't shut the border off. First of all, that's a lie. We never closed the border. Trump never closed the border. You can't close the border. Second of all, we invented these things called ships and planes that also come from Mexico and bring people back and forth and products, goods and services back and forth. Little pesky little fact. And Republicans should know that because that's Ted Cruz's favorite hangout is Cancun, Mexico. But we'll be right back with some more 2 Queers in a Truck.
Hey guys, I've got a special product out, and we've got a store under the name blueappliedtech.com, and you can go on our Etsy store, you can go on our social media, and you can check out our merchandise. We have some amazing snowflake Trump mugshot ornaments. We have mugs, we have pillow covers, we have a lot of cute stuff for the holiday season that you can buy. And it's great fun, and it goes to a good cause. It goes to my company, and it's helping us out getting started. And also, it just, who doesn't want a historic snowflake Trump ornament?
Exactly.
Here,
that's funny. What's the name of it again?
And the name of the company is Blue, like the color blue, applied APPLIED Tech. Like technology.
Blue Applied Tech. Ah, cool.
And so you can look us up. We have a website, but our store is on Etsy, and a lot of people use Etsy for different types of gifts. They are assembled in the United States, so it creates American jobs. And most of all, it's a lot of fun, and they're not expensive.
Cool.
So,
Blue Applied Tech. Got it.
correct. Come seek us out and buy some gifts.
Cool.
And we are back. And I just don't get it. Because people that live in Texas love going down to Cancun and Cozumel and Playa del Carmen and cruising out of Galveston and going down there, or flying down there and getting completely plastered at all-inclusive resorts. Like, that's just what they do, because they like going in the San Antonio River Walk and doing the same thing. I know, I work there, I've lived there. Interesting thing. So Braxton Winston, local politician that is on the city council now and is running for the Board of Labor, had a statewide office, pointing something out about the city council, that developers are trying to pressure the city council to go back to mostly single family dwellings, because developers can't make as much money off multifamily dwellings, and they're willing to build big mama jama houses for $1 million rather than building a bunch of cheaper, less expensive units, even though our city doesn't need more inventory on the high end. We need more inventory on the low end. We need more multifamily housing. We need more buildings. We need more apartment buildings. We need more multiplexes. And we need a lot of even senior living situations as well, low-cost senior solutions. And Braxton's pointed this out. He quoted a Chicago city councilman that talked about the mistakes Chicago made on housing and how they're having to go back and fix exactly what Charlotte's trying to do, which is cater to the developers that are building these high-end homes and saying, let's just make it a free-for-all. Let's make sure the developers make money, but at the cost of housing shortages, high prices, high rents, unsustainable practices that's led to 20,000 plus people being unhoused, but also for for older people and younger people, not be able to afford their taxes if they own a house or a condo, or be able to afford rent. Because as property values go up and taxes go up, rents go up. Replacement cost of the property goes up, which means their insurance goes up. You're seeing that in Florida right now, where developers have developed Florida so much in the big cities, the replacement cost plus climate change has made insurance almost unaffordable. People are having to sell their homes because they can't afford the insurance or can't get insured because pesky little climate changes. And it's only going to get worse. And Charlotte, instead of getting ahead of the curve, and it disproportionately affects people of color, which is the majority of the city council. And I think every single Democrat, I'm trying to think who's left that's not a person of color on the city council right now. And that's a Democrat. And I can't think of one. And so it's like your own community, ethnic-wise, your own community as the city of Charlotte saying, we need us. But you're giving preference to people that may not even be from here. There's these big companies, these huge companies coming in and just destroying what's left of our housing market. And it's going to go way up and then it's going to crash. And then it's going to be a mess. then you're going to have a financial mess, and then you're going to want to have banks bailed out when they shouldn't be bailed out. If they are fronting companies money and building like there's no tomorrow and building only high-end homes when high-end homes are not needed by the market, and you're going against the market so they can make huge profits and not think about the stability of the market, then let them go out of business. Because that's what the market says happens. If you do stupid things, you get stupid prizes. And we've had this bailout mentality in this country for big corporations, which is socialism. But somebody like you and I, we don't get that same treatment. We have problems. It's tough shit. I can't go to the government and say I need a bailout. I need a personal bailout. Can you spot me 50 grand? It doesn't work that way. But Bank of America can say, oh, we're going to have to lay off so many people. We need $50 billion, and they get a check scratched, which is just so bizarre. And when we're talking about financial responsibility and all that, and the people that are the least responsible are the ones that say that the most. Irony is not lost on me. This one's a quote from Smelvis Jr., which, if you don't know who Smelvis is, it's the nickname for the Elvis lookalike Trump. But they call him Smelvis because he smells. And so Smelvis Jr. got on Twitter. While my father loves almost all of his supporters, please do not come to Mar-a-Lago to support President Trump. We have many important people coming through the club, and we need to keep it clean. And I guess they think their supporters aren't that clean. And that we love almost all of our supporters. Words mean things. And I don't know whether coked up, pilled up Smelvis Jr. understands, which I know he's stupid. And I know his brother is stupid. But he's basically saying, we love you. Buy our t-shirts, buy our trinkets, buy our Trump bugs. Well, we don't really want you coming here. Like, this is where we live. We only want to see the guests that are giving us really, really big, like, $1 million and $1 billion checks. Like Saudi Arabian princes, Russian oligarchs, people like that. Billy Bob buying that $5 trinket. We love you. We're going to send you a plaque. It's in the mail. But we don't want you showing up at our sleazy golf motel. Okay. Like, we got more important things like pills to take and sex workers to work. But anyway, and eating cheeseburgers. But it's really bizarre that they talk to their supporters that way. They do that all the time. And I don't know why MAGAs love him when he could have pardoned all the January 6th people, and he didn't. He had 2 weeks to do it and had the list. Like, they could have just said, here you go. Everybody that got a t-shirt gets a pardon with it. On January 7th, they just could have said, and nothing we could have done. Not a single one of them would be in jail right now. He didn't give any members of Congress that asked for a pardon. And they still do his bidding because they think he's going to be president again, and he's not. The courts have already ruled against him. He doesn't have immunity. He's not going to get immunity. You can't break the law and think because you're a president or a former president, you do whatever the fuck you want. That's kind of problematic. That's the problem that Russia's running into right now. They've got a Putin problem. And he's got him embroiled into a war with Ukraine because he's trying to create a new Soviet Union. And Ukraine saying, "Nah, we don't really want to be part of the Soviet Union again. We kind of like our independence. We're our own country. We're our own language. We're our own people. Yeah, we're kind of cousins, but we still want to be just the Ukraine. We don't really want to be part of the Soviet Union." And, that's kind of why they're fighting back and begging us to make sure we keep helping them. So Russia doesn't take the rest of Europe. Probably a good idea. It's kind of like we supported the Germans too long, and look what they did in Europe in the 1940s. In the late 30s, they just rolled over Europe, and we did nothing to stop them until literally they were about to take England and Russia and the Soviet Union. We were like, I guess the Japanese bombed us. Let's go ahead and get involved. Yeah, we probably shouldn't wait that long again. Like, if Putin were to take Ukraine, I don't think he would stop there, and nobody else does, including a lot of Senate Republicans that also agree with sending money and sending weapons to the Ukraine to make sure the Ukraine stays free and doesn't become annexed by Russia by force. All of our allies in NATO and the EU all need us to help. They're like, we don't really want to fight a war with Russia. We'll win, but at what cost? And Germany especially, Germany knows that if the Ukraine falls, they're probably going to have to go to war with Russia. And that's going to get ugly fast. And we don't need that for the economy. We don't need that for world stability. We should be putting out fires, not putting gasoline on fires and letting it burn out of control. And war, as we've seen with World War I and World War II, can be contagious. This can spread faster than COVID. It doesn't take much to get us into something we can't get ourselves out of easily. And better to spend money now, just like with the border. If it's as bad as the Republicans say the border is, okay, why not spend the money now? If it's inevitable that we got to defend the border, why aren't we passing this now? Why are we waiting until after the election? People have to ask that question. Voters need to ask that question. Why are the Republicans in the House not wanting to pass this? Important questions. On a lighter note, Riviera Beach in Florida, as the city council of that town found out, the water department didn't disclose that fecal matter and E. coli showed up in the drinking water. And they said it never actually got to any end users. They stopped it between the wells and the actual taps of the customers of Riviera Beach. But a lot of contractors and a lot of people said, yeah, last year there was a lot of yellowish, funny smelling water coming through their taps. And the city council of Riviera Beach just found out now. And this happened in the middle of 2023 last year, in the summer of 2023, that there was poop in the water. People poop. And they don't know why. There's a lot of not really good explanations coming from the water department. And we know Florida's going to shit because of this circus, but literally Riviera Beach, like, that's just nasty. And you kind of wonder what the water department was thinking about hiding a fact, and the fact that people are going, no, yeah, we saw water went funny and we stopped drinking it. We use it only for certain things because, yeah, that's pretty gross. And I don't know. I don't know if they fixed the problem. I don't know if it's an ongoing problem, but it just makes you wonder. We think about what happened in Flint, Michigan, how the water department ignored things, how the state Republicans wouldn't fund the cleanup of the lead poisoning before it became a problem, how they let so many people die and get permanent brain damage and body damage because of the chemicals and the leads in the water. And you wonder how many water supplies are actually safe. You wonder, like, it makes you, even though we should drink tap water, preferably filtered, and we wouldn't be able to trust our city water, there's a reason why Americans buy like 5 billion bottled waters a year is because of stories like this, and it's the whole point of improving our infrastructure. It was the whole point of the infrastructure bill was to keep things like this from happening. And I know in Texas, there's a lot of problems with water supplies too. And because of all the manufacturing plants, all the oil business, there's just a ton of issues with groundwater and well water in the state of Texas. And yet, I guarantee you, we've seen with the energy bill down there, they haven't done anything to improve their energy distribution. They're still having problems this winter. They're still having shutdowns of heat. And you're wondering, well, what are they spending their infrastructure dollars on? What are they actually doing? Why aren't they preventing problems like those? And it's kind of scary. It's really scary that ERCOT and Riviera Beach in Florida and Flint, Michigan can't do better by their people. It's one of those things where you think about, I think about tainted water. I think about other countries. I don't think about America. I don't think about Hollywood and glamour in New York City and having bad water. I guess that's in the cards for 2024 is no electricity in Texas and no water in Riviera Beach, Florida, unless you like poop water, which I like iced tea. I don't really like poop water, but I do like sweet tea. But yeah, I don't really like that additive into my drink. It's just not my thing. But, hey, it's Florida. Anything goes, it seems like, unless, of course, you're trans or a drag queen. Then, we can't have that. We can't have any Black history classes, and we can't have any of that pesky critical thinking in the colleges, universities in the state of Florida, because that would be too much thinking. In Florida, the state of Florida does not like people to think. They don't want Disney to think. They don't want anybody to think, unless you're going to a Klan meeting or a mom's fraternity or hanging out with Casey DeSantis and Puss in Boots and his little white boots. And it just, I don't know. Florida is definitely, it's going to become a fixer-upper state pretty soon, just like Texas. Like, do we sell Texas to Mexico? Since they want to leave anyway, do we just go ahead and sell Texas like eBay? We just put them up on a 24-hour auction. You think Mexico would buy Texas back? Probably not. I don't think they'd want to go to that yard sale. Then they'd get all the Texans. They'd be stuck with Abbott. One of the interesting things that I'm seeing, and I follow a lot of people on Twitter that are in the history spaces and on Instagram too, that are Black historians that talk about Black history. And I find it interesting when they talk specifically about slavery. you see these white MAGA shit posters jump in and go, well, there was black slave owners, and there was Africans in Africa that sold Africans into slavery, thinking, well, that discounts 400 years worth of evil in the United States, and we're not a racist nation because Africans sold Africans into slavery. They helped assist it. And I equate it to, they probably were part of the process, but they're not the reason it started. Like, there wasn't Africans in Africa that jumped on a boat, went to Europe and said, hey, Europe, we really want you to come over here and enslave our people. We want you to sell them to other people in the world. Like, that's not how that happened. The colonial powers in Europe were already invading Africa, just like they did the Americans, and decided they wanted to sell a lot of cheap labor, free labor, to colonists, to the British, to all these different places in the world. And they literally exported people. They sold people. So it started by white people. It was enabled by white people. It was controlled by white people. And 99.9% of the owners were white people. And it didn't stop there. So when they finally lost that ability to do that in 1865, they then turned around and did Jim Crow and segregation and so many other things. We just saw the last of the schools being desegregated in the 80s and 90s. In our lifetime, or in my lifetime, and in Christian's lifetime. I went to a school in 1982 that, in a school district that had just been desegregated in 82, the year before. They lost a court case and finally desegregated those schools in the start of 82. In fact, I was the first kids that went to a desegregated school district, a large school district in Texas. And I wasn't 6 years old. I was a teenager already. I was a seventh grader. The last of the schools lost the last of the desegregation lawsuits happened in the 1990s, when the majority of the millennials were already born.
Hey, everybody, you can catch us on your favorite audio podcast platform, Spotify, and all Apple Store, the Google machine, and whoever else does podcasts. We're on there. We broke in, and we're staying. So enjoy the Two Queers in a Truckk on your favorite audio podcast platform. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye. Happy Pride.
This happened in the majority of Americans' lifetimes. Out of 330 million Americans, probably almost 80-90% of those were alive during us desegregating our schools, which was the after effect of slavery that supposedly ended in 1865, but racism didn't. We had civil rights bills in the 1960s. So when white people tried to, I don't feel guilty for slavery, but what I don't want to do is see us repeat the harmful effects of what slavery and racism caused. I want to learn from history. I want to be mindful that not only did slavery happen, but segregation ended in my lifetime. That civil rights struggles and civil rights passing bill happened right before I was born. The fact that white people tried to assuage some guilt, I think you only feel guilty is if you still want all that to be in place. Do you want segregation? Are you uncomfortable eating lunch next to a person of color? Are you uncomfortable going to the same public multi-stall restroom? Is there an issue that we need to talk about? And it's a resounding yes. these same people don't like diversity hiring. They don't like affirmative action. They don't like anything that could possibly help somebody else that does not live like they live, or love like they live, or anything else. They're so caught up in other people's sexuality and body parts and what medicines they take and who they fucking marry when it's none of their fucking business. They need to mind their own fucking business. Which even Jesus says, thou shalt not judge, or you shall be judged. He's like, nay, nay, nay. Hey, that's my job. Stay in your lane. Especially white people. You mind your own business. And, you know, I never worried about who went to school with my kids. That was the least of my worries. I was just hoping my kids paid attention, learned something, graduated. Like, I didn't care who was sitting next to my kids because there were other kids. End of story. My kid learned because my kid knew there was consequences for not paying attention in class and doing their homework. That was it. So all my kids went to public schools. They all graduated public schools. I'm a product of public schools. And there's nothing wrong with public schools. But there is a problem with dismissing the tragedies of segregation and slavery and acting like it wasn't so bad, like it was some kind of work study program. The people just jumped on the boat in Africa and just said, come on over and put shackles on me. No, that's not what happened. There wouldn't have been an Underground Railroad, and there wouldn't have been a Civil War if it was happy, happy, joy, joy. Little pesky facts that you can't erase, even if you're stupid enough to try. But that is it. That is all we have for this week. And we will dance out. And happy Valentine's to everybody out there.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next week, boo. Bye, boo.
Bye, boo.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching. And happy Valentine's Day, because it is the 14th. And that's when this show drops. And we will see you next week, hopefully. Have a great week.
Bye, boo.
Bye, boo.